Deep within the jungles of Central America, beneath layers of mist and time, lies a world that once pulsed with the rhythm of gods and stars, the world of the Maya. Long before steel or empire, they built a civilization guided not by kings alone, but by calendars, faith, and the whisper of the heavens. Archaeologists trace their beginnings back more than 4,000 years. Around 2000 BCE, when small farming villages appeared across present-day Guatemala and southern Mexico. Here, the first Maya learned to grow maize, the crop that would feed not only their bodies, but their entire belief system. According to the sacred text Popol Vuh, the gods shaped humans from corn itself. Myth, yes, but a myth that mirrors truth. Maize was life, order, and creation. These villages grew into ceremonial centers, Macbay, El Mirador, San Bartolo, where temples aligned with the rising sun and stars. Even before pyramids pierced the sky, the Maya already measured time in sacred patterns. To them, time was not a river flowing forward, but a wheel turning eternally, each sunrise a rebirth, each eclipse a dialogue with the gods. By 500 BCE, the jungles glittered with new cities, trade routes of stone. The Sakbib linked them like arteries of civilization. Obsidian, jade, shells, and cacao flowed across mountains and plains, carrying not just goods but ideas. The Maya built cities, unlike any the world had seen, living calendars of limestone and light. Temples at Tikal, Copan, and Palenque rose as stairways between heaven and earth. Their kings, called Jah, ruled by divine right, astronomers, priests, and warriors all in one. Inscriptions confirm that each city-state functioned as a political and religious center, united by language and belief, but independent in power. War was ritual, not chaos. Victories fed the gods. Defeats were divine tests. To rule was to balance the cosmos. Every battle, every ceremony, a reflection of celestial motion. Art and knowledge flourished. The Maya invented a written script of intricate glyphs, among the most advanced writing systems in the ancient world, and a mathematical system that included the concept of zero, centuries before Europe understood it. They calculated the orbit of Venus, predicted eclipses, and aligned entire cities to the sun. Their world glowed with color: jade, red, turquoise, obsidian, each hue carrying sacred power. Mathematics was music. Architecture was prayer. And time itself was divine. By the dawn of the first millennium CE, the Maya had entered their golden age. Dozens of city-states thrived. Tikal, Caracal, each ruled by kings, whose names were carved into stele, immortalized in stone. Population soared into the millions. Temples rose higher. Inscriptions grew longer. Yet even in this brilliance, the first cracks appeared. Rivalries deepened. Forests thinned, and the great cities, bound by pride as much as faith, began to compete not with nature, but with one another. The wheel of time was still turning, and its next revolution would bring not glory, but silence. The golden age of the Maya had reached its peak. Across the jungles of Central America, pyramids glowed under the tropical sun. The cities of Tikal, Copan, and Caracal rivaled the grandeur of Egypt or Babylon. From above, the Maya world must have looked eternal, but beneath its brilliance, the clock of destiny was already turning. And as the centuries passed, the harmony that had held their world together began to fracture. Kings and rivalries, each Maya city was its own kingdom. Proud, independent, and ruled by divine kings. They shared language, religion, and art, yet each believed itself chosen by the gods. For centuries, diplomacy and war danced in endless rhythm, alliances sealed by marriage, broken by betrayal. At Tikal, kings proclaimed themselves lords of the four corners of the world. At Kala, the rival Snake King dynasty rose to challenge them. carved stele tell stories of conquest, prisoners, and blood sacrifice. Each victory celebrated as proof of divine favor. Archaeological inscriptions confirm that the wars were frequent and ceremonial, political, religious, and economic all at once. War was theater. To defeat an enemy was not merely to expand territory, but to maintain cosmic order. A captured rival king was not humiliated. He was offered to the gods, completing the sacred cycle of creation and renewal. But with each victory came loss, resources consumed, people displaced, cities exhausted. By the 8th century CE, competition had replaced cooperation, and the sacred wheel began to spin out of balance. The weight of the earth, the Maya had mastered agriculture in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. They carved terraces into hillsides, drained swamps, and channeled rainwater through canals and reservoirs. For centuries, this ingenuity sustained millions. But population kept growing. More forests were cleared, more fields planted. The soil thinned, the rivers clogged with silt. The balance between people and land began to crumble. Soil cores and pollen samples confirm widespread deforestation and erosion. In the southern lowlands between 700 and 900 CE. At first, the kings built more temples to honor the gods of rain and maize. When harvests failed, they built even more, but no monument could bring back the rain. The great droughts, modern science has revealed what the Maya could not. Around 820 CE, a series of megadroughts struck Central America. Decades without steady rainfall. Lake sediments and stalactic records show a dramatic collapse in precipitation. For the Maya, who depended on seasonal rains and hand-dug reservoirs, this was catastrophic. Crops failed. Famine spread, and when the heavens grew silent, the kings lost their divine authority. Archaeological climate data from Lake Chichen-Canab and Petunitsa confirms these long drought cycles coincided with population decline and urban abandonment. Desperation followed. Rituals grew more frequent, sacrifices more extreme. People prayed harder, worked longer, built temples higher. But the droughts continued. Collapse and silence between 800 and 900 CE. The great cities began to fall. At Copan, the last dated stela was carved in 822. At Palenque, the royal tombs were sealed forever. At Tikal, once the brightest jewel of the jungle, the fires of ritual went out. No invasion destroyed them. No foreign army came. The Maya fell to forces of their own making and of nature's indifference. Archaeologists call this event the classic Maya collapse. Yet it was not extinction, but disintegration, the unraveling of political and religious order. Villagers left the dying cities, taking their gods with them. They moved north to the Yucatan Peninsula, founding new centers like Chichen Itza and Uxmal-Yanga cities built atop the wisdom of the Old World. The Maya had not vanished. They had simply changed shape. The human-caused excavations show traces of struggle. Burned temples, unfinished palaces, hurried burials. Skeletal remains reveal malnutrition and disease. Even the art changed from grand celebration to somber reflection. What had been a civilization of builders became a civilization of survivors. Their kings disappeared, their scribes fell silent, their cities turned to stone ghosts beneath the forest. But the people, the heart of the Maya, endured. Modern genetic studies link contemporary Mayan populations directly to those of the classic period, proving cultural continuity across collapse. In the villages that rose from the ashes, they still planted maize, sang the same songs, and whispered to the same gods. History would call it collapse. The Maya might have called it transformation. The legends of the end centuries later, Mayan storytellers would explain the fall through myth. They said the gods withdrew because humanity had forgotten gratitude, that kings built temples too close to the heavens, that the earth, weary of carrying so much pride, reclaimed what was hers. Such legends are not history, but they reveal truth in another form. That the Maya saw balance as sacred and arrogance as the seed of ruin, and perhaps in that belief lies their wisdom. Every age of greatness contains the seeds of its own decline. Every monument to power is also a warning. The wheel turns by the end of the 10th century. The jungle had swallowed the heart of the Maya world. The great kings were gone, their cities hidden under roots and soil. Yet far to the north, in new cities like Chichen, a new cycle was beginning, one that would shine briefly before foreign sails appeared on distant horizons. The Maya had fallen, but they had not ended. Their time measured in circles, not lines, was simply turning toward its next beginning. The jungle had grown thick again. The great cities lay buried, their stones covered in vines, their gods forgotten by empires far away. But the people, the Maya, were still there. Not kings or scribes anymore, but farmers, traders, healers, speaking the same ancient tongue beneath the same ancient sky. And then, one day, sailors appeared on the horizon. Arrival. In the early 1500s, the world changed forever. From across the Atlantic came men clad in iron and faith, Spaniards seeking gold, souls, and glory. To them, the jungles of Yucatan were a mystery, and the people who lived there, remnants of a forgotten age. They did not know they had stumbled upon a civilization older, wiser, and far more enduring than their own. Historical records show that first contact occurred in 1511, when shipwrecked Spaniards were captured by coastal Maya. Some perished, others adapted, and one, Gonzalo Guerrero, joined the Maya, married, and fought against his former countrymen. His story, half history, half legend, marks the first true merging of two worlds, the birth of a new people. Children of maize and sea. Conquest and resistance. When Francisco de Montejo landed in 1527, he brought war, priests, and plague. But unlike the Aztecs or Incas, the Maya were not one empire. There were many nations. To conquer them meant not one battle, but 100. For nearly 2 centuries, they resisted. Armies burned towns, enslaved captives, destroyed idols. Yet in the forests, the Maya struck back. They vanished into the green labyrinth, attacking by night, reclaiming what was theirs. Historical accounts confirm that the final independent Mayan kingdom, TSL, fell only in 1697, making the Maya the last major civilization in the Americas to be subdued by Spain. Even then, their spirit did not surrender. While cathedrals rose upon their temples, the old gods quietly hid beneath new names. The maize god wore the face of St. Thomas. The goddess of rain became the virgin of the waters. Conversion, for the Maya, was not submission, it was camouflage. Faith and fire missionaries came to erase the past, but in doing so, they preserved fragments of it. One man, Diego de Landa, burned thousands of Mayan codices in 1562. An act of tragic zeal. Yet, years later, he wrote Relation de las Cosas de Yucatan, a book describing the very culture he tried to destroy. That text would one day help scholars decipher the Mayan script. History often hides irony. The same hand that burned knowledge also unlocked it centuries later. Through destruction came rediscovery. Through silence, survival. Through faith, transformation. The hidden continuity. Even as colonial towns spread across the Yucatan and Guatemala, the Maya never truly vanished. They worked the fields, spoke their languages, and passed on their stories in whispers. Beneath Christian festivals, the old calendar still turned. Under the cross, offerings of corn and incense continued. Modern ethnographic studies show that many current Mayan rituals are direct continuations of pre-Columbian traditions, hidden beneath Catholic symbols for centuries. Their gods changed names, but not meaning. Their temples became hills. Their prayers became songs. And through every generation, something of the old world lived on. Even today, millions of Maya people keep that legacy alive. In language, in belief, in the way they understand time as something eternal, cyclical. Rediscovery centuries later, explorers from Europe returned, not as conquerors, but as seekers. In the 1800s, Stevens and Catherwood journeyed through the jungles, sketching temples half devoured by roots. Their worth astonished the world. The myth of primitive America was shattered. The Maya had been builders, scientists, poets. Their ruins spoke not of savagery, but of symmetry and genius. Archaeology followed, and in the 20th century, with the decipherment of the hieroglyphs, their lost voices were heard again. We now know their kings by name: Pakal, Yaxcaucamo, Jasau, Chancawil. We can read their thoughts, their fears, their pride. The Maya are no longer shadows in myth. They are people as human as Huas. Today, more than 90% of Mayan glyphs have been translated, allowing scholars to reconstruct their history in their own words for the first time. Legacy and reflection, every civilization rises and falls. But few leave echoes as deep as the Maya. They remind us that collapse is not always destruction. Sometimes it is renewal. Their world fell, but their people endured. Their faith bent, but did not break. The Maya lived by one truth: that time is sacred. They saw history not as a line, but as a circle. To them, the end of one era was simply the beginning of another. Archaeologists and climatologists studying their falls see parallels with our own age. Overpopulation, climate strain, loss of balance with nature. The Maya's warning is silent, but clear. Civilizations survive not by power, but by harmony. The eternal cycle today. Modern technology, satellites and LiDAR, reveals thousands of hidden Mayan structures beneath the jungle canopy. Each discovery reminds us they were never lost, only waiting to be found again. In villages across the highlands, the Maya still speak to the earth, still mark the stars, still whisper to the spirits of rain. Their temples may crumble, but their worldview endures that life and death, creation and collapse are all part of the same sacred rhythm. When the sun sets over Tikal, light spills across the stones one last time. Birds call from the canopy. The jungle hums, and in that timeless sound, you can still hear them, the voices of a people who measured eternity and became part of it.